Hey ho, Kermit the Frog here. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Hogsty. Today, the guys discuss the final preseason game against the Bucks, the final regular season roster cuts, Corey Lichtensteiger's brand new contract, and much, much more. So stay tuned for another exciting show. Yay! I'll be right back, Miss Piggy.
Welcome to the Hogsty with your crew, Alex Zeese, Steve Thomas, and Robbie Duncan.
Mana.
Da 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 da.
And we're back.
Yeah. Sorry, everybody.
Welcome to another exciting show.
We're very excited to have you here today.
I am Steve here with you. We have Alex with us today. How are you, Alex?
I'm doing good, Steve. I'm dry, which is more than you can say for some of those guys who were in preseason game 4, because they were in kayaks on that field at one point.
It was a big mud pit.
It really
Robbie
was.
Duncan's here with us. How are you, Robbie?
Steve, I'm good. I gotta tell you that your comment is not bad, but you could do better.
See, I'm just downright frightened when I hear that. If that guy ever walked on my house, I don't know what I would do.
We got an impression out of
Run the
Steve.
other way.
We got one out of me. What's your best impression, Alex?
Oh, God damn it. What is my best impression? You put me on the spot here. Well, I don't know about that.
Bill Clinton?
I did not watch the game. I was too busy smoking a cigar.
I did not watch.
Say what you want about Bill Clinton, and personally, I think he's a despicable human being, but he would be a lot of fun to have on like a show like this.
Oh,
if we
yeah.
could ever convince Bill Clinton to come on this show and get him drinking,
we're there.
I mean, it would be a blast.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be a blast.
Well, but sadly, now he's old. He's gone vegan, and he doesn't drink anymore, and he doesn't party. Like all the fun things you'd want to do with a president like that, he doesn't do anymore.
I honestly don't think I could stand to be in the same room with him. To be honest,
It's got to
with you.
be gluten free.
Yeah, that'd be awful.
Oh my.
Yeah.
So, is there any big news that happened this week? I don't know.
Well, the big news today, of course, this week was roster cuts. We went from 90 to 75 this week. And then just today, we're recording on Saturday here, we went from 75 to the final regular season 53. Mm-hmm. And, of course, we had the Tampa Bay Bucks preseason game number 4 that was played, as Alex mentioned, literally in a hurricane.
Yeah.
With about a half roster, and the rest of our guys, of course, stayed back at home in D.C., all nice and dry, and we saw a bunch of third and fourth and fifth string players play against the Bucks. So I guess we ought to start with roster cuts. What does everybody think? What are general impressions?
I just wanted
about the
to
roster?
make a note that I'm pretty sure I saw on top of the ship at Tampa during the game, during that storm, that I could see Lieutenant Dan yelling, "You call this a storm?"
Blow, you son of a bitch, blow.
It's really dumb. I don't understand the NFL sometimes, because there were like, a couple 4,000 people there in the stands, I guess.
So by the way, I had a whole discussion about this. The NFL claims 8,000 people showed up to that game.
No.
There's no way there were 8,000 people in the stands.
One of the guys on The Insider actually did a little thing where he counted how many people were in one section and just said, all right, let's say that's the average. His number was 1,500.
I think you could probably literally count every person in the stands without too much trouble.
Yeah, I mean, you need multiple camera angles, but yeah, probably right. And 1,500 sounds more right to me. That place was abandoned.
Well, I think it was Sally Jenkins maybe mentioned on Twitter, that at one point would, if the game got canceled at one point, when the NFL have to give refunds, it's an interesting point, because we just had this problem with the Hall of Fame game.
Right.
We didn't talk about this at the time, but the Hall of Fame game got canceled because of poor field conditions, which we did mention.
Right.
But there's now a lawsuit about this, because the NFL did not. They told the team the teams involved like 2 hours ahead of time, I think.
Right.
Didn't tell the public until almost game time.
Yeah, people.
by that time,
the stands were full, and everyone's like, "We're not playing."
Yeah. People had traveled. People had spent a ton of money, and so an enterprising class action lawyer got a hold of it and filed a lawsuit. And had a pretty reasonable offer. He had an offer on the table of $450 a head. And the NFL, being the NFL, said no, and so now it's proceeding on, on course now. So that coming just a month ago, now we have a game that was played in a hurricane.
Right.
The NFL was probably particularly sensitive to making sure that come hell or high water, that game was going to get played.
Right.
No matter what.
Now, here's my first reaction. Why didn't you just move the game to DC? It's a preseason game, and I know.
You know why? Here's why.
You think the same lawsuit type thing, or?
No, it's because who gets the income from ticket revenue? Then you have the Bucks having to refund their season ticket holders, and then you have have to have the Redskins try to fill FedEx Field on less than 24 hours notice.
We could have gotten more than the 1,500 or so people that were there.
Maybe so, but I mean that's the problem. It's like
Yeah.
then the Bucks lose the revenue. You can't have the Redskins donate their revenue to Tampa because one thing, there wouldn't be much revenue, and two, they probably wouldn't do it anyway. So it's a revenue thing, and so more than anything, the NFL is driven by money more than anything.
Yeah,
people.
I
mean,
understand that. And
I know
I'm
you
not
get
naive,
it, but if the public would understand one thing, it's that the NFL is all about money.
Yeah.
First and foremost, and so they're going to have these preseason games no matter what.
And that probably was actually the most interesting part about that game when it comes right down to it, was the fact that they're playing in about 12 inches of water the entire time.
Well, it made it really tough on the quarterbacks.
Right.
Who was, I can't even remember the name of the Bucks quarterback, but that
Was it Mike Glennon?
Yeah, maybe it was Glennon, the one that he dropped two
No,
balls as he was.
Glennon dropped one, and then it was the other guy, Ryan Griffin, I think, that dropped this.
Oh yeah. They're Griffin.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, because at least Sudfeld wasn't that, he was pretty
He was
bad in
actually
that game,
bad,
honestly.
yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, at least he didn't make any huge mistakes. He didn't drop the ball. He didn't throw dumb interceptions.
The whole preseason
I mean, he was like 8. Yeah.
Did he really?
I mean, he was.
Huh. Good for
I
him.
mean, as a matter of fact, I think we only had the one Cousins interception. I think was the only one we had all.
No.
preseason.
Colt had that one
In the red zone.
in the Jets game.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I mean, I gotta forgive Sudfeld to a certain extent, just simply because.
Yeah.
The conditions are so horrible. I mean, I don't know. He's got a long way to go. He's made the 53, so he's going to be our third string quarterback. Obviously, the Redskins are, given the quarterback problems around the NFL right now, I think the Redskins are too afraid to cut him and put him on the practice squad because he's a legitimate option for teams that are just desperate.
Yeah, I guess so. But I feel like that's all settled down right now, or settling down. And who knows if tomorrow they will get rid of him. I'm surprised that they kept Sudfeld over some of the guys they did let go, particularly the player of that fourth game, Mac Brown. I mean, I was really impressed with Brown all preseason, and I really thought he earned a spot on the roster.
I did. I agree with you. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean,
Rob.
I just think that his Sudfeld spot could have been used for another position that we could have used instead of just a third quarterback sitting on the bench. I mean, it's not like
Right.
Kirk. He's not the type that puts himself into dangerous situations unless the offensive line, just completely, blows a play and gets him hit really bad and he gets hurt. But Kirk doesn't. He's not one that plays reckless. So I mean, it's not like you're gonna have a concern for the quarterback getting hurt or anything like that. And
Yeah, but you know what? I mean, I kind of think I was thinking about this right before we went on the air. This draft class isn't shaping up to be as good as last year's draft class. I mean, we've of the entire draft class, we only had 2 make the roster. The active roster, and of those 2, one has never even practiced ever. I'm sorry, 3 made the roster. 1 has never practiced, and 1 isn't going to play much. And Kendall Fuller, he's buried on the depth chart. So of 6 players, you've got Doxson, Cravens, Fuller,
Sudfeld.
Ioannidis, Daniels, Sudfeld, and Marshall.
Right.
You got the only players, and you got 4 of them didn't even make the team for various reasons.
Right.
And so I don't know if McGloin wanted to go, have Sudfeld go out like that, and all of a sudden have, even less players actually playing from this draft
See, the other
class.
thing,
McLuhan,
sorry,
I was going to say, he doesn't historically strike me as that kind of guy with that ego, though, where he doesn't want his rookies, where he's going to put someone on just to say, I had a good draft.
yeah.
So that would surprise me. But, you could
and
be
I
right.
said that wrong. I said that wrong, by the way. I meant 3 in addition to Sudfeld.
Right,
those
right.
other guys. But I don't know. I mean, we all expected Keith Marshall to perform, and he didn't. I think it's a good time to talk about Marshall, I guess. I mean, his elbow injury was not season-ending. They took that opportunity because of his poor performance to stash him so they could keep him and they wouldn't have to put him on the practice
squad.
squad.
They did with Daniels and Martrell Spate last year. I mean, he had a concussion, but, I mean,
Yes.
it's not like...
It wasn't a 16-week concussion.
It
No.
was a strategy move just to store him for next year, and look, it turned out pretty well because he's looking pretty darn good right now.
Because if he was healthy, they were going to have to cut him. And he wasn't going to. He was not as good as Brown or Kelly by a long shot. So he was not going to make the team no matter what, and so it was a way to keep him away from everybody. But back to Brown, Brown was our leading rusher. I think he might have been the leading rusher in the NFL in the preseason. As a matter of fact, I found it, of all the cuts that happened today, that was the one that surprised me the most, particularly since we don't have a fullback on the roster.
Right.
Because in the past we've many years carried 3 running backs and a fullback.
We'll see.
And so now we don't have that.
Though. Niles Paul is our fullback.
I know. I mean, but from a roster position standpoint, we've many times carried a dedicated fullback in Mike Sellers and then Darryl Young after him.
Right.
And
we're
not doing that.
The thing that surprises me, you bring up Paul. I mean, Logan Paulson also gets cut. You would think if we were cutting the running back, it means we would have kept the 4th tight end.
Yeah.
Or even, this is a guy I kind of was starting to stand on the desk for, was TJ Thorpe, somebody who's a real good special team standout wide receiver.
I was hoping
you
TJ
could use
Thorpe
him as a
would make
punt
cut.
returner desperately.
Well,
because I'll tell you what.
I was
Go
just
ahead.
going to ask, well, what was the official numbers of each position? Like, how many are in each spot?
Well, it was 24 on offense, 26 defense, and then the 3 specialists. The D line we had 1, 2, 3, 4. I forgot to write them down. We've got
I think 6 on D-line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
that's what everyone's been talking about on Twitter, at least.
we've got 6 on D-line. We've got 5 inside linebackers. We've got 4 outside linebackers, if you include Trent Murphy as an outside linebacker. We've got 6 corners, and we've got 5 safeties. And so there's your extra positions right there.
Right.
We've got the extra positions right in the corner and safeties. Then we've got the 3 tight ends. We've got 6 interior linemen, meaning guards and centers,
right,
with Austin Reeder surprisingly
That
making it as
expect.
a dedicated backup center. Yeah, I didn't either.
Yeah.
And then we've only got 3 tackles, so we're down to only Morgan Moses as a swing tackle. The 6 wide receivers we all thought would make it, no surprises. They're the 3 running backs as we talked about, 3 quarterbacks, and then the 3 specialists. So that's the breakdown. I think let's just start with defensive line. Anthony Lanier, undrafted free agent.
Did you read the article about him this week that came out? Like his whole why he decided to come to DC after he went undrafted?
Why don't you tell us?
Well, it was a great article. I wish I could remember who wrote it. I think it was in ESPN, so it was probably Kime, but it might have been the Post. So anyway, basically, Doug Williams started scouting Lanier a year ago, I believe, and Williams had gone and visited him a bunch of times, and after the draft, they had Doug Williams himself call Lanier and say the Redskins are interested in bringing him in, and that's what convinced him, that they had somebody scouting him, someone he knew with the team, call him and make that first contact. And that's what convinced him to come on.
And Williams loved him. I mean, he was like the guy he said that Redskins had to get.
That was Williams' guy.
He was, I guess, standing on the chair, like you said, Alex, for him.
Yeah.
So,
well, Robbie, I know that you've watched Lanier. You've talked about him before. What is it about Lanier that made him make the cut?
He's a big dude. He's 6'6", about 285 or so. But he's got that length and size that you want on the D line, and he made plays. I mean, he got in the backfield a lot. He beat guys in one-on-ones in camp. He had that near pick in the 4th game. I mean, he took every opportunity he was given and ran with it.
Yeah.
But I wanted to kind of mention too, just kind of keep it rolling, how Austin Reeder made the roster. I think it kind of makes you think that maybe Spencer Long's injury with his ankle is not as good as it appears.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because it really surprised me, because I guess I'd like your opinion on Reeder, because he didn't impress me as a center. I mean, you're the expert. I'm no expert. He didn't strike me as being a very good center. And more than that, this team, I think, more than anything else, has preached flexibility, around the roster.
Yeah.
And we've got guys in the defensive backfield that can play center or that can play, safety and corner. We've got, linebackers that can switch in and out, a lot of things. And here we've got Austin Reeder, who is not a guard. He's too small for that. He's only a center. He didn't really look that good to my uneducated eyes. So why do we have Austin Reeder on the roster?
For that reason, with Lichtensteiger taking his pay cut, which we'll talk about, Spencer Long's got an injury thing that we're not quite sure on. We need a backup center, and the thing is, I mean, he had a pretty good game the first game that I saw. The reps that he got at the end of the first game. The second and third, I couldn't quite tell. I mean, it's really hard from the preseason broadcast camera to really evaluate the offensive line. But, I mean, in this fourth game, anytime you have your running backs running through wide open holes like they did in the fourth game, your offensive line is doing something good. So,
right.
I have to think that he was a big part of why they ran so well in the fourth game.
Well, let me ask you this. Joshua Reeves got cut. He's been with the team, 5 years now, 6 years?
Like that.
I think 5.
A while.
Yeah.
Yeah, 5 years. His cap hit for 2016 was $680,000. Reeder's was $450,000. I mean, Reeves only had an $80,000 dead cap, so it's not a big hit though. So given that, the difference in salary is that much. Was Reeder just a better player than Rebus, or is he just a guy who has a little bit more potential and he's a little bit cheaper?
It's all of the above. The way I see it, I mean, Rebus, last year he did what he could. He got hurt, but I mean, sorry guys, I got a loud dog downstairs.
Yeah. we can hear him.
Apparently the dog is a Rebus fan, because as soon as you started talking about him, he went crazy.
Sorry.
No,
he hears
don't
red.
cut Rebus.
Sorry, everybody.
He hears it.
Maybe that's it.
But yeah, Reeder, I think seems to me like he's stronger. He's able to anchor better against these stronger D tackles. I think he's a little bit more mobile too. And then numbers wise, he's cheaper and he's younger. It's just the ceiling is higher for him. So I think it made sense to go with the younger guy, cheaper guy, and go from there.
I'll say. I know Robbie's had some pretty strong criticism of him, but this team has needed to start grooming a younger center for a long time, and we've kept on avoiding it. We keep on getting guards and trying to convert them, which I'd rather find a center out of the draft and develop him into being that long-term starter. So I like the Reeder that he's going to be there, and give him a year to give it a shot.
Oh, I don't dislike him. I just thought it went a little bit against the grain of what the team has done in other areas. That's all. And of course, the rumor has persisted since the draft that Scott really wanted the center Kelly from Notre Dame. Yeah. And the Colts got him like 3 or 4 spots ahead of us.
I'm convinced that was the pick had he been there.
And then we had the Stork, trade disaster happen, and that fell through. And so it's very apparent that the team is just not happy with the center position.
By the way, I want to do a mini apology to our listeners that we spent so much time talking about Brian Stork, and then, by the time the show came out, I think 20, 30 minutes later, they announced
it was totally
irrelevant. That he failed his physical. So
you can just, if you're going, but the audience going to skip the first 30 minutes.
I think you can forgive us.
Well, it was. Don't skip the first 30 minutes because it's our Chandler interview. But just forgive that part.
Yeah, really. All right. Anyway, the other guy I'd like to mention is Ziggy Hood. Yeah. Because I don't think anybody saw Ziggy Hood. Going back to defensive line, I don't think anybody saw Ziggy Hood coming in and playing his way into a starter's role. I mean, he was a high draft pick with the Steelers. Mm-hmm. They bounced him out of there, and all of a sudden, the guy was maybe our best defensive lineman during the preseason. Don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, we signed him back during Super Bowl week. It was just one of those futures contract, training camp body type things, and he, looked like a first-round draft pick this preseason.
Well, I'm not going to say he looks like a difference maker or anything, but
he made plays.
It reminds me of the Adam Carricker signing when we signed Carricker.
Yeah.
You know, he was a bust
guy.
as a first round. Yeah, he was a bust as a first round pick for the other team, for the Rams, and in this case for the Steelers. But when you take a guy who's got the physical tools of a first round pick and you don't have those expectations anymore, you know, this could be a great change of scenery option for him.
Well, and remember with Carricker also, I mean, he got hurt here too, and if he hadn't gotten hurt, the times when he was on the field and healthy, he was playing pretty well for us, and it might have worked out, you know. But he had some serious health issues. So,
but he also gave us 3 or 4 good years, even with those health issues.
Yeah, oh yeah, he did. I mean, but he could have really made it into being a prominent player,
Sure.
but for his injuries. But my point with the defensive line, I guess we'll move on, is the defensive line needed help last year. It wasn't very good. We were terrible against the run and marginally better against the pass. And basically what we've done here is we swapped out Paya for Hood and added a Lanier.
Right.
You know, and so I think this group has a lot to prove going into the season that it can make substantial progress with regard to stopping the run.
Well, one more thought on D-line. And anyone else surprised that we let go, I think, 4 linemen today? Colin Jenkins, Matt Ioannidis. Doesn't matter now. Ioannidis. Gerald Poe and who was Crawford. We let all 4 go.
Well,
I think Crawford's caught up in a numbers game more than anything.
Well, I called the Ioannidis cut. I said Lanier would make it over Ioannidis. I mean, there was a night and day difference between the two. Ioannidis was just a space eater. I mean, he wasn't making any plays. He wasn't getting in the backfield at all. I mean, he just didn't make anything happen, and Lanier did. So it was pretty obvious in my eyes. So I wasn't surprised to see the cut. I mean, I think they're just going to try to stash him on the practice squad for next year.
I was more surprised by the who was it, Jenkins?
Yeah,
who we just signed. And
I wasn't surprised by Jenkins. I mean, you know, he's old. For football terms, he's old. He's a 13-year vet.
Yeah.
He signed a 1-year non-guaranteed contract for vets minimum.
he was here for a cup of coffee.
Yeah, I think basically the team took a look at him. He wasn't what they wanted, you know, and that was it. I don't think Colin Jenkins was under any impression that he was here for the year.
It was a tryout, and he didn't make it because I mean, yes, he did well, but he was going against back end roster guys, and he's a grizzled,
right?
He's a 35-year-old
defensive lineman who's been pretty solid his whole career. So it's not like that was anything impressive in my opinion.
Yeah, and listen,
enough.
I mean, and if we're worried about if the fate of the defensive line rests on Colin Jenkins, we have bigger problems. You know.
Well, I mean,
he was going to be depth.
Does anyone think that the defensive line is going to be great this year at this point?
No, I think we're going to be lucky if they're any good at all against the run. Quite honestly, they haven't made a lot of improvements. You know, by the way, the beat writers are saying that Ioannidis and Crawford are probably practice squad bound. We don't know yet as of this recording.
The ones they mentioned putting on practice squad, or at least trying to, was Ioannidis, Crawford, Thorpe was mentioned. So was Kendall
your
Thompson.
Boy.
Maurice Harris was also mentioned to trying to stash on the practice squad.
Yeah.
Mac Brown
and Joe Carriage.
Yeah, and your boy Carriage.
Yeah.
I don't think in this year, you know, unlike other year, I think the bulk of the practice squad are going to be guys that have been in camp. I don't think the team's going to sign too many.
No, not for the practice squad. I do think that, and we kind of talked about this off air, we will probably bring in 1 or 2 guys who do get cut for a workout, maybe sign them in replacing somebody else. I know there was one name, the guy from Green Bay, Robbie, whose name I don't. Yeah, thank you. I couldn't find it in my notes all of a sudden. Yeah, so, you know, we could see something like that, but who knows? We kind of did that when we cut down to 75, brought in 1 or 2 guys. So
yeah, well, there's going to be tryouts, you know, all year long. You know, if we move it on to the linebackers, Rob, were you surprised Terrence Garvin made the roster?
No, he was part of my roster prediction too. He makes some plays as a linebacker, but his biggest attribute is his ability on special teams. He's a special teams ace.
Right.
He was our replacement for Adam Haywood, and that's pretty much what it is. He's just going to be our big-time special teams guy, maybe one of our leaders on special teams, and then play in a pinch at linebacker if it gets to it.
Yeah, I've heard, by the way, one or two reporters say that Scott hasn't really said a lot about it, but fixing the special teams unit was actually one of his bigger priorities this offseason.
They didn't make too much progress in the preseason. They were terrible in punt coverage.
Yeah, yeah, but you got to remember they're also trying out a lot of guys who got cut in punt coverage.
Punt return has to get better.
Yeah, that's true.
Easily our worst aspect of special teams.
Yeah,
well, it's funny because T.J. Thorpe was our best punt returner, I thought.
Yeah, I think so, too.
And I thought Rashad Ross has more potential at it than Crowder. Crowder just doesn't need to be a punt returner.
No.
Ross has potential, but he was very inconsistent himself.
Yeah.
I guess Thorpe got caught up in a numbers game, but I think Thorpe would have been the best out of the bunch. These guys. I don't know if we have a good answer, on the roster for punt returns, unless we go, Alex East's thought and put somebody like Rob Kelly or somebody out there, one of the running backs, or Thompson. Yeah, I guess. Because it certainly was a failure again on the top of the failure last year, certainly.
Yeah, I mean, it is partly the returner. It is, Robbie and I have both kind of identified that we are not blocking people at all on those runs downfield.
No, we're not.
And it's hard to return a punt when you've got a guy right in front of you every time.
Yeah, and you guys are right, but let's not.
Oh, we're not. I don't think either of us are
Crowder
excusing.
pass.
Is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
it's terrible. Yeah.
I think it's time for Mr. Special Forces to find a new team if it doesn't improve this year.
Yeah, I think we've got the Brazilian special forces instead of the Navy SEALs out there. It's what it is. He just has the wrong country special forces going.
Hey, but they're good looking.
Outside linebackers, moving on, we've got Bates, Kerrigan, Smith, and Murphy.
Mm-hmm.
Bates, I think, is maybe the 53rd guy on the roster. I know the rumors have persisted for days that the team's trying to find an edge rusher they could bring in, and if that happens, I think Bates is going to be the guy to go.
Mm. Possibly. Yeah. Bates, again, it's one of those guys who you want for your special teams to, improve that spot. But
if you watch Bates and Murphy off the line, in the rush and the passer, he is more explosive than Murphy. He has a quicker first step. He runs the loop a little bit faster. But, even then, he's still not a great pass rusher.
Yeah, I thought the move of Murphy to defensive end was a smart one.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I think it was a mistake for the team to give up on that just because of an injury.
Yeah.
Well, Robbie, let's hear your no kidding, honest to God, what is your assessment of Trent Murphy? Because from my perspective, they moved him to interior defensive line or for a reason. Yeah. And the reason was that he wasn't a good edge rusher. He's a second-round pick. They needed to try to make it work for him, so they told him to gain 30 pounds and let's try it out. And he's more than willing, of course. And now all of a sudden with Gallette's injury, they move him back to outside linebacker and pretend like everything's okay. So what is your assessment of Murphy?
Well, for me, we drafted Murphy in the second round. He led the country in sacks coming into the draft. Obviously, we thought we were going to get a pretty decent pass rusher out of him, but his game in the NFL, and you can see it. He's pretty good at it. He's setting the edge in the running game. He makes plays in the running game against the run. But obviously, he's not going to make that many plays as a pass rusher. Which is fine. You need guys that can stop the run. Kerrigan and Preston can do that, but you also need somebody that can come in and do that too if one of them is tired or gets hurt. But yes, we do need a third actual edge rusher that can make the quarterback step up into the pocket where guys like Baker and Jean Francois or Ziggy Hood are pushing it to get him in the front. But I don't know how many people are out there at this point that are worth bringing in short notice.
It's not like the NFL just lets guys who are good at rushing the passer wander around in the desert.
Yeah, and what guys that are there are like ones with high potential that couldn't put it together. It's more project people. But
or they're guys.
Maybe long term, the answer is Gillette.
Yeah.
If he finally comes back and he's finally healthy and everything else.
I think we need to start looking to the draft for it at this point. I like Gillette. I want him to work out, but
it's tough to come back from.
Yeah, 2 leg injuries in consecutive years. Yeah.
Well, it needs to be said, though, that excuse me, edge rushers aside, and I think Kerrigan and I think Smith probably has more potential than Kerrigan is a better pass rusher. But part of the big problem was that the defensive line didn't get any push at all on the inside last year.
I mean,
these guys, Baker, but all three of those guys need to get better.
Yeah.
They need to get a lot better.
Let me finalize Murphy.
Yeah.
Yes, if he's playing first and second down, he's setting the edge, stopping the run. When it comes to pass rushing, I still think you could get something out of him in that department if you put him down as like a pass rushing D tackle. He's a
hand in the dirt, though.
He's not going to stand up. He's not going to stand up from the D tackle position. He'll be hand in the dirt. You run some stunts with him and Preston Smith or him and Kerrigan. I think you could make it work and actually generate some pressure with Murphy on the inside.
See, I think the big mistake with Murphy at linebacker was that they ever dropped him into coverage. And he should always be a guy trying to get in the backfield, whether it's against the run or the pass. Yeah. He is better, locking up on a tackle or a guard.
Type thing.
Yeah, go get the ball.
Yeah.
Or bring down the guy with the ball.
Did any of the cuts bother anybody? Out of the outside linebacker group, Fields, Trail, and Wakefield were cut. I know Lyndon Trail showed potential.
I've heard.
Yeah, I mean, Lyndon Trail showed potential at times.
Practice squad is possible for Trail too, so that's another person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moving on, we kept 6 corners, which we have in the past kept 5. I think in this case, it's a case of Quentin Dunbar and Greg Toller primarily forcing themselves on the roster.
I think it was more Greg Toller forcing his way in the roster because I don't think they had any expectations of him really, kind of shining the way he did this preseason camp. I think Dunbar was pretty much a lock because they wanted him on the roster to continue to develop. I think they see a lot of potential in him, and they can't, stuff him on the practice squad or that kind of thing.
Well, Dunbar's probably ineligible for the practice squad at this point.
He was on the roster all 16 games, I think.
Well, yeah, but you have to actually play or start or something like that, right? Isn't that what?
Well, you have to be on the roster for a certain number of games to not be practice squad eligible anymore, even if you don't play.
Right.
But I kind of disagree with you on Toller, and we talked about this when we did our cornerback position group breakdown. But Toller has a lot of game experience. I think they did expect him to come through and be a gamer and a guy who, while is not a starter, could be was going to be a contributor. So no surprises really in the corner group.
No.
No surprises in the safety group
Except
either.
Everett.
Except DeShazier Everett. I think, and maybe now's a good time to do the poll. I think, in my opinion, DeShazier Everett played himself onto the team in the final preseason game.
He was lights out. He was all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And why don't you just go over what the poll was? I mean, it's kind of silly to go over some of the answers we had now, but let's go over it.
We'll just go over it real fast. Yeah. The poll was, what Skins bubble player helped himself most against the Bucks? And, if other, please, give us some comments. And the choices were Mac Brown, DeShazier Everett, Cullen Jenkins, and TJ Thorpe. Because we thought that those players were probably the 4 best performers in the game. I'll just go ahead and read the answers out here. Mac Brown was the winner. 64% of the people voted for Mac Brown. No surprise there, because he had the most obvious and flashiest game at 130 yards rushing, I think. 150.
Yeah.
DeShazier Everett was next with 31%. Cullen Jenkins 4%. And TJ Thorpe didn't get much love, only 1% out there. I thought he played well.
I think he did. I think fans probably accept the fact that we have our wide receivers. We know who they are. Why would you put another on the roster? Anytime I was trying to say TJ Thorpe was doing a great job, that's the response people gave me. Is, we're set.
Well, remember, Shanahan kept 7 wide receivers 1 year. I forget who. Somebody forced themselves on the roster, but that was the poll. I think if Everett had not played nearly that well against the Bucks, he might not have been on the roster, and we might have had someone else at another position on the roster.
Now he had that great, what was it, the tip pass to Iheanacho, right? That was Everett.
Yeah.
But
that wasn't the only play he made. He was just really solid the entire game.
That looked like he was playing freaking volleyball for a second when he did that.
Volleyball in the mud.
Speaking of Duke and talking about his game too, I think eventually down the road, maybe not early, but mid-season, I think he's going to be our starting strong safety. I think he's much more of a playmaker than David Bruton is. And I think he really plays hard, too. He plays really solid against the run, and he makes plays. He forced the fumble, and then he got that pick. I mean, he's a guy that always seems to be around where the ball is.
I mean, I like Duke Nacho, but he's been hurt. And I was a fan when we grabbed him off the Broncos. What was it, 2 years ago now?
Yeah. Two seasons ago, yeah.
But we just never got to see him play.
Yeah.
Well, and I told you guys that Bruton was going to make the team and start no matter what,
right.
just because of his contract.
Right.
You know, he has a $9 million contract.
Sure.
You know, his dead cap number is $3.4 million this year. This dude was going to play, and he was going to start no matter what, unless he was just terrible.
Oh, yeah. But I think Bruton. I mean, not Bruton. I think Iheanacho is going to. I think he's going to eventually play his way onto that starting spot during the season. When he gets his chance, he's going to take it.
Of this group, Mario Cooper was cut with an injury settlement, or waived with an injury settlement, today Saturday, and then Geno Matthias Smith was cut. No surprise there. Didn't get much action this offseason.
Yeah, no
if we move on to the offense, we talked about Nate Sudfeld a little bit already, but if we want to go back to that, we've got the 3 quarterbacks on the roster now. It is what it is. The tight ends.
I don't like it.
Logan Paulson, longtime veteran, Logan Paulson is cut. If you guys remember, my hot take on the on the roster spot was that Marcel Jensen was going to replace Paulson as a 4th tight end. I would like to point out that while it didn't come true, he was the last cut. So I was almost right.
Points for almost right.
I know. Close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, people. It doesn't actually count. Paulson is gone. We've got Davis, Paul, and Reed. Is anybody upset? Logan Paulson gone.
I'm not upset, and I'm sure people are going to eventually reach out to me and say, "Hey, Robbie, Logan Paulson didn't make it." I mean, I wasn't an advocate for Paulson, but the way I saw it with him being on the roster, he is a blocking tight end, and he does it pretty well most of the time. I mean, yes, he sucks in the receiving game. He can't hold on to the ball. Even when he does catch it, he ends up fumbling it most of the time.
Well, it's worth pointing out that, I think you had good logic behind it because we've got Reed, Paul, and Davis. Reed is injury prone.
All of them.
Paul has been injured. Davis is old and injury prone. So it wouldn't surprise me if we didn't sign somebody to the practice squad just to have a warm body.
Derek Carrier's still on our roster technically too. If he's on that PUP list.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he can't come back until week 6, I believe it is. He's on the PUP list.
He could they'll probably bring him back once he is healthy because I think they do like Carrier a lot too. But here's the thing too about Niles Paul. He's technically our fullback, H-back type guy. With him being injury prone too, I mean, I think that's the biggest reason why Joe Carriage lasted as long as he did on this cut day. I mean, he was one of the last guys cut too. He went the distance, and then he was part of the last 4, I think. But
I'll tell you, Robbie. I mean, I watched Joe Carriage since you've been talking about him. I tried to focus on him in the Tampa game, and you're very right. I mean, he's an outstanding blocker. He really locks people up. He can move bodies. He can kick him out of the way. He creates holes. He's a really good fullback.
I agree, and he's the thing that he has best going for him besides his blocking ability is his effort. I mean, he's a 110% effort guy, blocking through the whistle, finishing his guy. But the thing I see in him, at least for the future, assuming he does go to the practice squad, is if Niles Paul doesn't work out, he gets hurt again. Whatever. I think he's slotted to be his replacement because he has a little bit of receiving ability. I mean, it's not like he's going to go out and run tight end routes or anything, but he can catch and run with the ball. He's done it before in college, so I think they're going to stash him in the practice squad, have him ready for whenever that time comes. If Niles Paul gets hurt during the season, Joe Carriage will replace him. I'm going to call that right now.
Well, I
think you're right.
And, we could also even argue about what might happen in 2017, for that matter, because I believe Paul's contract is up next year, too. I might be wrong about
Niles Paul?
Yeah.
Niles Paul's contract is up at the end of 2017, yes.
Okay, end of 2017. Okay.
Correct.
Gotcha. Well, I think that covers everybody who was on the roster. Everyone who's released, really.
Yeah. Real quick, Rob? You were surprised we didn't keep 2 tackles. Colefield and Isaiah Williams got cut. We only have 1 swing tackle now,
which is fine. I mean, because that's why Quanjo's there too. I mean, he played tackle during the training camp a lot.
Yeah.
I think they have him ready for that in case it gets to that point. If Trent goes down and Secchi comes in, then Morgan goes down, then Quanjo will come in at right tackle. That kind of thing.
Right. I mean, it's not a good. It's never good if you lose your 2 starters anyway.
Well, yeah.
So
if Quanjo's out there playing tackle, we got problems. He's not a tackle.
Yeah.
He's not. Doesn't have the feet to play tackle in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, but if it's an emergency situation, I guess you throw him out there and pray, pray everybody don't get killed.
Yeah. Well, it's not like we have 4 deep of the Hogs.
Oh no.
No, we don't. Speaking of the Hogs, to move on here, last year we had Joe Jacoby on our show twice, and the second time especially, we talked about the fact that Joe Jacoby needs to go to the Hall of Fame.
Sure. Actually, I think we've talked about that almost every other show.
Seriously.
Just to be fair.
We have. And guess what, people? We're starting the campaign again. So we are officially doing the Hogstyes Joe Jacoby to the Hall of Fame campaign one more time. We're going to, if you go to our website, we're going to have a brand new updated post on there about it.
We need to update some of the people who vote, I think, at this point, which we will. And because last year he was a finalist for the first time ever, which is great. And I don't know whether if we had anything to do with that or not, but point is he got there. And what you can do out there in listener land, of course, is contact the voters, and the voters being the Pro Football Writers who are on the Hall of Fame committee. Right.
Contact them via Twitter, via email, and tell them that you want to see Joe Jacoby in the Hall of Fame. And that's what our article on our website will tell you how to do that for all of them. So we're going to start that again, and we're going to let's hope that this time he can make it. He kind of got caught up last year behind another offensive lineman that was also a candidate. So this year, hopefully we can get there.
There were a couple names that had to be first balloters too, which always makes it complicated. When you have guys like I'm just going to say like a Brett Favre who has to go in right away, it always makes it tricky because I don't understand this rule how they only let so many people in the Hall of Fame at one time. It's a weird thing that they do. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, they're trying to keep it special, I think, because you don't want to have, I think who does it wrong is basketball. The Basketball Hall of Fame lets in all sorts of people who just have no business being Hall of
Fair
Famers.
enough.
Like these overseas guys, like coaches, and just craziness. And on the other end of the spectrum is you have baseball.
Yeah, which sometimes doesn't put anybody in.
Yeah, or just like 2 people, and then you have football is kind of locked into their system. But I think you can't have too many people in, otherwise it's going to become the Hall of,
good,
meh.
the Hall of Good.
Yeah, the Hall of Good.
And I understand,
so we don't want that.
And I understand that side of it, but at the same time, I feel like they've built up a backlog of guys who do deserve to be in there at this point. And they're
Joe Jacoby being at the top of the list.
Joe's definitely at the top of the list. There might be others from other teams, but I don't care about those other teams. So, they can go kick rocks.
Not really, yeah.
Yeah. One thing, just off the top of my head, we should try and figure out, because the D.C. area is getting a new voter, isn't that right?
Well, David Elfin has been the voter for a long, long, long time. Excuse me. Now, what happens, how it works is every NFL city has one of the local writers be their representative on the campaign. And then there's another group that are at-large voters, people like John Clayton, who's on it. He's a national writer. David Elfin has been the Washington, D.C. voter for a long time. David Elfin does not cover football anymore.
Right.
we talked about this with Rick Snyder one of the times he was on the show.
Yeah.
David Elfin is in the transportation industry now. If you look at his Twitter page, he's covering like the trucking industry, I think. But he's maintained his vote, and I have not seen anything that indicates Elfin is retiring from the Hall of Fame committee yet.
That's odd to me if he hasn't. We should try and find out who it is and have him on the show. If
right now it's Elfin.
Yeah, I mean, if Elfin changes, or we should try and get Elfin on the show. I don't care, but
maybe we could get Elfin on the show, and yeah, I don't know. He may not do it since he's not covering.
Yeah.
We may have. It's possible we might have possibly tried to contact him before with no luck.
Oh,
I don't know.
Okay.
Well, just to go, possible, but there's a limited pool about who the new voter could be.
Right.
Right,
because you have to be with a newspaper that covers, I believe, and all sorts of weird.
Well, ESPN doesn't let doesn't let too many of their writers.
And the Post
do it
has
either,
always
so I
said
think.
no for some reason. I'm
sorry, it's the Post that doesn't let the writers do it. That's what I meant to say.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
It's ESPN does because Clayton's on the committee. It's the Washington Post does not let their writers be on the Hall of Fame committee for some reason.
Yeah.
So really, you're down to Tandler, Snyder, somebody like Michael Phillips, maybe.
Would Snyder even? I mean, because he works for the Post Express.
Well, Snyder told us on our show that he would do it, except that he chooses not to cover the Super Bowl anymore.
Oh, right. There's that rule too.
He told us that on our show last time.
Right.
He was on.
I forgot that he told us that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm excited to get the campaign going. I think we need to, off mic, figure out some brainstorming ideas for maybe some additional things we can do. And to our fans out there, if you have any creative ideas of how we could maybe push this rock forward a little bit further, go ahead and send them to us at thehogside@gmail.com.
And listen, we're okay with monetary bribes. I mean, if people want to get together and get $20,000, $30,000 together and try to bribe a voter,
Let's
just
get a
leave us.
Yeah.
Leave us out of it. Don't say it's our idea, but go ahead and do it. Yeah.
If you start a Kickstarter for it, make it under the smog sty or something like that.
Yeah. Just as long as it's not, attached to us, because, we don't want to do that. But whatever works, man. If cheating's what we have to do, let's cheat, by all means.
Speaking of cheating, let's move on to one of our final topics. Lichtensteiger has a new contract. And I don't know what that has to do with cheating, but
cheating him out of money, I guess, maybe.
Well, maybe.
It's what happens very often in the NFL is teams will go. People like Mark Schlereth has talked about this before on the air. Not with us; he's never been on our show. But they will come to players and say, "Listen, son, if you would like to be on, we know you have this contract, but if you would like to continue playing for our team, you will sign this other new contract that we have here." Ready for you.
Right.
And if you choose not to sign it, we have this other piece of paper here that says you're going to be released. And so that is what happened to Corey Lichtensteiger very likely this week. He had a $3.8 million cap hit, $3.25 million base last week. Now this week, he has a $2.6 million cap hit and a $2 million base.
Right.
So he just took a flat-out pay reduction period because I think the team realized that Lichtensteiger wasn't worth what he was getting paid.
Sure.
But they needed a center, and so they just went to him and said, "Look, son, this is the way you stay on the team. Otherwise, we're going to cut you. We'll figure out what to do about it."
Yeah.
By
the way, if you watch the terrible HBO show Ballers, they covered this, I think, a week or so ago, where they asked somebody to cut their money for somebody else. But
I started to watch Ballers.
Yeah.
I watched the first season of it, and I watched a couple episodes of the second season, and it's starting to lose me. I'm
surprised you don't get angry how you kind of look like Rob Corddry. And
he does.
I think I look better in a suit than he does.
Well, that's not hard. That's not hard at all. And you probably do far less cocaine than he does on that show.
I don't do any cocaine. So, I mean, I don't do drugs. I don't drink. I don't, snort cocaine off
Steve
strippers.
Would be the worst,
and he does all that.
Agent on that show ever. He'd be the boring agent who actually just does his job.
Yeah, instead of taking him to strip club, say, "Hey, you want to go see a movie? Maybe go grab a burger at some dive.
Here's some popcorn.
Yeah,
let's eat popcorn."
The sun kissed on me.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I don't think I would work out for an agent for those reasons. It probably wouldn't go too well.
No.
But that's Corey Lichtensteiger. the guy, I don't know. It's Lichtensteiger is going to be with him, and Kedrick Golson are going to be on this team forever. I'm convinced.
Well, Goldson's already been on this team forever. I mean, whenever he does get released, and I'm not saying it'll happen this year, but it's going to happen eventually. I assume he's just done, and he'll have played a great career with the Redskins for a 7th-round pick or whatever he was.
Mm-hmm. Well, his wife has a real estate business in the D.C. area,
right.
So that's doing well. And you can look it up. I forget what it's called, but if you ever want to Google it, it's out there because she's got agents working for her.
Yeah. And he's been here for 10 years. This is got to be his home by now. So
I would think so. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but Golson is the senior.
Yeah,
the senior, longest tenured person.
10 years
on the
Redskins.
team. Yeah, he's probably one of the most tenured employees. Period. At this point, quite honestly, players, front office staff, everybody. He might be. One of the top.
I don't know what the all-time list is. I mean, I know
other than Mr. Snyder.
Yeah, well,
who's been there longer.
Oh, I was even going to say all-time, like of the 80-year history.
Well, Darryl Green.
Yeah, he had
20 years,
21 years,
20. Monty Coleman was it did about 15 years.
And then if you go the old guys like Sammy Ball was around for 15 years because back in those days
Jacoby
you didn't get
was
traded.
With the team for 10.
Yeah.
Some Russ Grimm was around for a long time. Art Monk, I don't think you can compare, but the pre-free agency guys, I don't think you can compare.
Sure, that's fair.
Anyway,
yeah,
we have a sad story to talk about here. The Washington Post published an article this week talking about the state of Sam Huff's health. We don't want to get too much into his business, but suffice to say that he has some health problems and there's some family issues going on, as stated in the article. Mm-hmm. Certainly, we extend our best wishes to Sam Huff and hope it gets better.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll just say my family, we went through a very similar thing with my grandfather right around that same. He's 81 years old now, Sam Huff. When my grandfather was 81, he started, he had early Alzheimer's. Huff, I think they haven't said it's Alzheimer's, but
it's pretty close.
It's pretty close to it, and that kind of thing. It's awful. It's always I've always said it's worse to see somebody lose their mental abilities than it is to see them, just die of something that could be rather quick. Because when the mind goes, it's just heartbreaking. So I hope that the family drama they have works out before before it's too late, because those things can either bring you together and make you stronger as a family, or they can break you apart.
Yeah, it really can.
And you'd always rather the first.
Well, and I think the article also mentioned CTE, and that he was suffering from the effects of CTE, as well, and so that's.
He's 81 though. How do you know the difference at that point?
Right.
I mean.
I don't. Yeah. I'm just saying that was referenced in the article.
Oh, I understand that, but I'm saying how can you really say it's one or the other?
True.
And I'm not to blow off CTE as a serious thing, but you're 81 years old.
Yeah. Yeah. We mentioned to transition to something a little bit more cheery.
Yes.
We mentioned that the guard Sitton is available earlier in the show.
Right.
But we didn't really hit on him. Robbie, what's your opinion of Sitton, and should the Redskins sign him?
All right, well, here's the thing. Josh Sitton's been with the Packers for a good while now. He's 30 years old. He's not too old or too young. He's like right in the middle where...
Teetering.
Yeah, you can sign him and get maybe 2 or 3 good years out of him before you have to find someone else to replace him. But he's a very good offensive guard. He plays left guard, which is a spot we're still not quite sure about. You can pick him up for the right price, I would hope. Have him start at left guard, and then you can have Spencer Long or Lichtensteiger, whoever you want. I would prefer Long at this point.
I mean, Laval, if he's healthy, he's a pretty good lineman.
Well, yeah, but he's...
Yeah, but how old is Laval?
Laval's not a
28.
center, though. He plays...
Yeah, that's true.
He plays guard. So he would be your primary backup. But I'm saying the thing about Sitton is he's not just some decent guard that you just picking up off the streets. He's not Brian Stork, who's a good center, but not like
Had
oh my
some
god,
flags.
we have to get this guy. Josh Sitton's an all-pro guard. He's he's been one of the highest rated guards for a good couple years now, and I mean he's 30 years old. He's at his, I guess, peak right now. You'd get maybe a year or two of solid offensive line play from him, and he can really make things go in the run game. I mean,
why'd the Packers cut him if he's this good?
I guess it's an age and money thing. That'd be my biggest thing. I don't know much about his injury history or not, but all I know about him is he's a very good offensive lineman, very good left guard. He's been to Pro Bowl. I mean, he's been one of the highest rated guards for a couple of years now, if not longer. And he would be a big addition to this offensive line, I think.
Well, the other thing is, do we keep 10 offensive linemen, or do we cut Austin Reeder to make room for Sitton or someone else?
They would probably cut Austin Reeder, depending on how healthy Spencer Long is. But yeah, I think that would probably be the sacrificial lamb, and then they try to put him back on the practice squad and then go from there. But
so you want to make a prediction? Are we going to sign him or not? Do you know?
I
what
doubt
do you think?
it, but it's one of those wishful thinking things. I think he'd be a huge upgrade over anybody we have right now at left guard.
We'd have to. He'd be hitting waivers still, right? I mean, is that still the case?
No. He's too senior. He's
okay.
not.
He's too senior.
He's not. The waiver thing cuts off. I think like year 4. I think.
Oh, okay. I didn't know it.
Don't quote me on that, people. But yeah, there's a. Don't quote me on the year exactly, but there's a time limit, experience limit for waivers.
So,
Gotcha. I didn't realize that.
I would be all for this signing if we went after him. He would make our running game that much better because that's his best thing is run blocking. But yeah, please go get him. I doubt they will, but that would make me very happy if we did.
Yeah. Well, and real quick, on the practice squad, as we're recording, as we said, we don't know who's going to be on the practice squad. But the rules on the practice squad, in case anybody's wondering, 10 people. We can sign 10 players.
Right.
They have a minimum salary of $6,900 a week during the season, and so that works out to 117, I think, thousand. Somebody do the math.
Right. Not a bad living, by the way, for a practice squad guy. Still,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're not rolling in dough or anything, but they're doing okay, for being a practice squad guy. But that's just the minimum.
Right.
They can sign them for more than that, and we have done that before. I forget who we did it to. We did it to one of our running backs, I think, a while ago. They I can't remember who. I'm gonna have to look it up.
I remember it happening, though. That we.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Fortune or anything, but it was more than the minimum.
If we weren't at the minimum end of the show, I'd look it up. But point is, there was a player we had, I think it was a running back, who a team wanted to sign to their active roster, and what we did was we redid his practice squad contract to match the league minimum. And so they kept him on the practice squad, and I can't remember who it is. But anyway, so that's the practice squad. They can cut and retain those guys, as it comes.
Right.
So expect, and by the time this show comes out, the practice squad will probably be set. So, that's all we have for today. This is the last show of this off season, and we're going to shift to a regular season schedule from here on out, like we did last year. So expect from us a game preview episode. Sometime in the midweek, probably maybe Thursday, if we're going to shoot for Thursday for release date.
Right.
And then expect a game recap episode either Sunday night or Monday morning, depending on, except the Steeler game, the Monday Night Football.
Yeah. We have a lot of primetime games. Those games we'll probably do the recaps the day after because we're not going to stay up till 2 in the morning recording.
No.
Maybe not.
And, I'll be in no condition to record after the Steelers game. So we'll probably do that one Monday, for example, so it'll be out sometime Monday or Tuesday morning at the latest. So just, that'll be how we do things for our fans to know. Just keep updating iTunes every couple days. You'll see something.
And I think now's just a good time to say thanks to everybody who's listening. I mean, we're entering into our second season now, and when we started this thing now about 18 months or so ago, I don't think any of us thought that this was going to amount to anything. Our first episode, I think we had about 10 people listen to it on the Insider blog,
about that.
And that was it.
I think 20.
Yeah.
20 was about it.
And the idea that this thing has morphed into something where we have enough listeners that people like Tyler Columbus and Rich Tandler and Joe Jacoby and the players Redskins have given us actually want to come on this show is kind of amazing, and it's still amazing to me that we get to talk to all those people. It's just unbelievable that we get to talk to those people. And it's all because we have some people out there who are listening. So I just personally, from and I think I can speak for everybody. Thanks to everybody who's listening and who likes what we do. And feel free to, if you have comments, if you have suggestions, please let us know. If you have things you want to hear, you want us to cover, please let us know. But thanks very much, and we're looking forward to a great season. We've got a lot of great things coming up that we're planning.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I'd like to say there are things we want to do in the future that will involve the listeners more. We're still trying to figure some of that stuff out. We obviously do the poll question now. That's one thing. I would like to maybe venture into doing a mailbag at some point, but that might be also a little dicey given what some of our people write on our Twitter already, so we'll see. But, we definitely do appreciate you guys listening. We appreciate the fact that our listener base has grown. I don't know.
Let's not say numbers.
Yeah, I'm not going to put out a number because it fluctuates a lot, but it's grown significantly in 1 year. I'll just say that.
We have a legitimate fan group of people that listen to the show now that we did not have before, and we really appreciate it. So,
and keep up the chatter on Twitter. If we post something, I'm always down for talking football. So, that's the biggest thing too. Is I love the interaction with everybody. I'm not pretentious where I tweet something and people respond and I don't respond back or anything like that. I mean,
none
I
of us think we're special yet. None of us. Are like, well, we're too big for anything.
We are truly just fans. I think we all have our areas of expertise, and I think Robbie has legitimate football expertise that most of the people out there don't have. I think I have got the business and legal experience that most people out there don't have. Alex is the technical stuff that Alex does that you guys don't see is just unbelievable. We can produce a great show.
Real MVP.
And Sean's a great host. But at the end of the day, we did this and we started this just because we're fans.
Right.
And that's it. So none of us are pretentious about it. Hey, and if we offend anybody on Twitter, for stuff, we're sorry. It's mostly me. If I offend anybody, one thing is too bad.
You're not going to
care. No, but hey, that's it. If you disagree with me about Colin Kaepernick, too bad. I think Colin Kaepernick, needs to stand up for the national anthem, and that's all I'll say. I don't care about his point. Stand up for the national anthem. But anyway, that's it. Unless anybody else has anything else, we will look forward to seeing you guys. It's week 1 coming up. We'll look forward to seeing you guys again for the Steelers game preview.
Yep.
So until then, take care.
Yeah, see ya.